Listen.
It's very important you see what happened to Katie.
So this movie's so gross that for the premiere, the cast was still wearing their bloody flesh effects, almost ruining the red carpet. And if you had seen Lee Cronin's last movie, know that this pretty much, it's just his Evil Dead Cairo.
Don't let it take my babies.
They even had to add his name to the title since people were confusing it with the Brendan Fraser series, since they were also working on a fourth film for that one. So a big part of their marketing campaign was to not market something, especially since those movies are family adventures. This is straight up a family horror. So if you want some nasty effects with loud noises, then this one will be right up your alley. It's a pretty big body horror type of movie, but as far as story goes, it definitely feels like they were mashing up different franchises.
What was our daughter doing in a 3,000-year-old sarcophagus?
Well, let me explain. So a quick rundown on The Mummy for, just the context of what it means in cinema. This thing goes back to 1911 and what's considered a lost film about a mummy being brought back to life. That then led to the first full film in the 30s with Boris Karloff, who was known for Frankenstein. And then in the 50s, Christopher Lee, who was known for Dracula, paused to make another. So in terms of horror, they really made this an icon out of the Universal monsters. So then come the 90s, we get the blockbuster version that gets 2 sequels and 2 mini Scorpion King spinoffs.
Oh, I hate mummies.
After that was in the Tom Cruise 2017 Mummy. His trailer with no sound. So now with the 2026 one, they're trying to take it back to its horror roots, but again, they kind of just remix it with another classic series that Blumhouse just tried to remake.
What if, what if we approach the mummy, but somewhat from like a possession perspective, right?
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, that's really interesting. And he pitched it to us, and it really was like the mummy, but kind of looked through the lens of like The Exorcist.
So here the movie begins with a family that's living in Egypt, chirping to some tunes in the car until they come home and find their pet bird bleeding. And so the mom decides to snap its neck in diopter. They then go downstairs to the cellar that's built around this pure black pyramid, because some people have wells, others have hidden tombs. And the mom, who's been acting way too suspicious, gets her husband to pull the lever like he's Kronk, only to get snatched up when the mummy peeks through, and now that man's out of the sequels. The title then pops up to make sure that you're watching the right movie as it jumps ahead to the main timeline with the main family, who's also living in Egypt since the dad's a TV journalist. He's there covering the water schemes in the desert while also dealing with his 2 kids who fight so much they even argue with their unborn baby that's on the way. But horror rule number 1 is broken from the jump when the eldest, Katie, doesn't just talk to strangers and take candy from strangers. This girl literally accepts an evil apple from a witch. So no wonder she ends up kidnapped and possessed. The dad then chases after them during a storm that gets left in the dust, only for the police to have the audacity to blame him for it. So he smacks the table to prove he's not crazy.
Are you gonna fucking help us?
8 years then pass and they're no longer in Egypt and he's no longer in front of the camera. They now live in New Mexico with his mother-in-law, where he's doing behind the scenes work for the local station. Maud, who was the baby at the beginning, is now the same age as Katie was when she disappeared, and they become so overprotective as parents that they don't even let their kids go on school trips. And when they finally take one as a family, they get a call that Katie was found.
Your daughter, Katie, has been found.
It turns out that there was a plane crash near the Egyptian family from the beginning, and that's how they find Katie's tomb, which pretty much just devastates anything in its way, like it's the Ark of the Covenant. And since they can't x-ray it to see what's inside, they pretty much do like a Blumhouse unboxing video as Katie wakes up and yells in Dolby.
Today I've got something unusual for you.
The family then flies over to Egypt and reunites with her in diopter, and it doesn't even look like they've run any tests on her. Like, they haven't given her a shower. They just got her sitting there with her skin looking like the before of an Aquaphor ad.
What was our daughter doing in a 3,000-year-old sarcophagus?
Well, that ends up being the big message here. See, it's one of those horrors where it's a metaphor for a family dealing with someone who was lost, who was kidnapped, and it's pretty much the aftermath of what a Taken movie would be, The police even note that she's the one who's habitually self-harming herself. So it is using horror to visualize the psychological damage that happens to a lot of these victims, how a family has to slowly unravel and peel back the layers of what has happened. And it's why all of the ads also really pushed weapons, since, well, that's like the better version of what happens with kids who have to recover. But the art subplot here is where it gets very interesting, especially when they connect it to human trafficking, because mummies aside, the detective does bring up how artifacts are used as the best way to transport bodies since they're never really checked. And there's been a bunch of movies showing how the art world does this and how they get away with it, be it for taxes, blackmail, hiding bodies, any of that, since they have these checkpoints called free ports that nobody checks at all. Like, they could hide you and send you in a drawer.
We don't have time for subtle.
Back home, the grandma ends up making a cake covering every birthday that was missed, which was pretty cute. Maud also tries to bond with her sister over their love of Taylor Swift. She just, doesn't vibe with her flesh friendship bracelets. But before she can even blow out the candles, Katie headbutts her grandma just for praying over her, leading her mom to inject her with the worst shots you can have on your birthday. At nighttime, Katie takes the crawl space seriously and is scattering around. She ends up eating a scorpion, puking pure black, all the usual post-birthday activities. But then come the next day, things get even weirder. There's wolves that are surrounding their house, Katie keeps convulsing, and they really try to get away with the cheapest jump scare I've seen all year so far. Really? A blow dryer? That said, this is easily the grossest scene of the movie because it goes full body horror. They're trying to give her a makeover and they decided to turn the sound effects up to 11 because you could hear every hair follicle getting brushed. They've got the nail clipper sounding like the jaws of life. And then of course they do the nastiest thing by taking the hangnail to the next level and having it peel off the skin going all up her leg. Nah! The dad then follows her around the house while she's gnawing, picking at her skin, even grinding her teeth worse than your partner does in bed. At this point, the parents are fighting since, everything that's happened, but they're blaming each other for not knowing about the secret friend. They're also at odds since the dad wants answers while the mom just, wants to brush her hair and pretend everything's normal. But it isn't until they ask her to speak that Katie projectile vomits into their mouth that they realize, they gotta do something.
I'm not stuck in the past. I'm trying to find answers.
This is when the dad remembers that he's a journalist and gets to work on finding out what happened. He's sneaking into college courses by pretending it's a news story, and he gets help from a professor who explains that the skin/bindings that she's shedding are written in a cursive script that predates Jesus Christ by 3,000 years. He starts studying this demonology and gets some of it translated as he learns that it's called the Nazmaranian, something that is known as the destroyer of families. And it's pretty good at that. That is until people learn that they could stop it through an ancient ritual where they have to find a vessel to trap it and then wrap it with these words of protection. So pretty much it's like the box where each family has to keep it going or else they get cursed. So they're just mummifying new bodies in order to keep it under wraps, but that's only gonna last so long.
I can talk now, too. Holy shit, I'll get Mom.
By night 2, we see that she can even control her siblings and can levitate them since she gets more powers as more of her skin sheds, turning her into like Tarantino sometimes. The dad then realizes that they did film a scene earlier on where they were doing Morse code to randomly order a pizza. So that way it can come back into play here as he finds out that Katie's using Morse code to let him know about Layla, the daughter of the magician lady who had snatched her in the beginning. That's when the dad decides to go through all of the cards that they got after she had disappeared and finds Layla's card completely unwrapped, but with the candy wrapper on the outside? Like, the thing that was in evidence? Like, this isn't just lucky for the plot. Dude, how did you not investigate these letters for 8 years?
Coincidence. My friend, there is a fine line between coincidence and fate.
We then see the rookie detective from when Katie went missing starting a new investigation in Egypt, so they just toss a yellow tint to worse than Albuquerque's. The problem is, though, that the movie started by telling you what's up, but now you're just following characters until they catch up, and a lot of it just feels like they're trying to homage Seven. She ends up going to the nectarine farm from the beginning and finds the mini pyramid in the basement as she gets closer and closer, but then the magician lady comes up and they do a shootout. The detective then has to chase the daughter, which is Layla, now older, who's rushing to unbury the VHS tapes she has of Katie, since she's been collecting and hiding evidence behind her mom's back, causing her own mama to cut out her tongue so she doesn't snitch. But now, cat's out of the bag. We then jump back to Katie bullying her grandma again as they're bathing her, and this time she bites her while she's praying, chokes her with her own cross, and then blows her out the window. And if that wasn't enough, the wolves/coyotes are eating her up. So now they're prepping another funeral, but this time with a body. Katie's taunting her brother since he had thrown the doll at the beginning over a roof, and now he's like, I threw grandma over a roof, I didn't forget. And at this point, Maud's also become fully possessed and has swapped out her own teeth with her grandma's dentures, which was easily the creepiest and goofiest shot of the movie. But the moment that she bites the priest while Katie's crawling on the roof and gnawing at her Mima's corpse, yeah, this family's gotta move. They're done. There's no coming back. The third act then goes full Conjuring as she's using telekinesis on her brother, making him smack himself. They got the grandma's body just chilling in the living room, and Katie even starts floating. and diopter. The detective ends up making it over with the VHS tapes, showing them how Katie was the 80-second mummification ritual and how they seek out kids because they'll be hosts for longer. And the only reason that she was even on that plane was because Egypt was expecting some flooding, the thing he was reporting on at the beginning, and I guess the demonic tomb couldn't handle water in the basement.
What was our daughter doing in a 3,000-year-old sarcophagus?
Well, now you know. We then get an MCU boss fight as she headbutts them upstairs. The mom has to swing at her son because he's possessed, and even the grandma gets reanimated and goes after the detective who's trying to voice the mummy swap ritual to win the day until a scorpion goes down her throat and slashes a hole out. So now she's plugging up that thing in order to finish the spell. They end up completing the ritual and mummifying the dad who saves the day until they hit you with a pre-credit scene where they scope out the evil lady who ended up not dying but is living in an asylum, and they sneak in to prep the 84th ritual to swap out the husband with her body instead. So now, they're just a family from the intro. They're just gonna keep taking turns. Thank you guys for checking out this video. I'm curious to know your thoughts down below in the comment section. A decent horror movie that isn't gonna top this year that's been getting a lot of really good releases, but it is really funny that they just asked to be mean with putting his name at the beginning, because you've had good ones, like Wes Craven's New Nightmare, John Carpenter's The Thing. Like, there's been decent ones. There's also been goofy ones, like Lee Daniels' The Butler, or Tyler Perry's Medea movies. Probably, like, the worst case would be Tim Burton's The Nightmare Before Christmas, because I know, like, that became a big issue where everyone was giving him the credit when he wasn't the director, but it's an interesting way to, like, approach these movies. I'm very curious to see how they're going to bring back the other ones, so I'll be doing a whole franchise covering the original ones and the Brendan Fraser one into more detail, but, some questions that they ask you, like, rat or frog? I personally think I'd pick mouse, since I'm mostly inside, but there's also another element where the tattoos, the scribes that they put on themselves, you might as well just get Post Malone tats like the lady had, because that's the only thing that's going to keep you there. Other than that, I'm curious to know your thoughts on this movie. We have a lot of upcoming good movies that I'm working on. I have a whole video going through all of the most hyped films, especially with the Oscars, and I'll be tracking all the categories since they've now made more updates for the Oscars, new rules, new ways for movies to be eligible, so you can follow along by clicking the link down below. Follow all the potential Oscar movies as Calamawy tracks them through all the festivals, all the premieres, and all the wins throughout the year. But until next time, don't forget to comment, like, and subscribe, or you'll get Lee Cronin.